That was close. I almost didn't make it. Yeah. Still gotta clean my hands. Whew. So much stuff to get oiled and stained this morning. I get to do the silly hand gesture while I dry my hands. Oh, my back. Leaning over all that stuff. Sanding for hours. Not fun. Not fun for an old back. Glove up. Alright, what's getting tongue oil today? So I get these gloves on. There we go. Sorry, my hand. So I got tenarashi. Do the Yawara first. Then tenarashi. Then Yawara. Then tenarashi. That's what we'll do. Ooh. Gloved up. Hey, where's everybody this morning? Oh, okay. I'll give everybody a minute and then I'll get started. Oh man, oh, my back. All right, let's get started. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Saturday Staining. Staining up some Gray Elm Yawara first. I've got a Gray Elm Tenarashi Tessen, some Ironwood Ipe Yawara, some Purple Heart Tessen. And then we got a shit ton of steaks that I gotta stain, and then I've got some Hanbo I've gotta stain. So a lot of stuff to get stained and oiled this morning. But if you got any questions about what I'm doing, feel free to drop those in the chat while I'm doing this. We got so much stuff to get through this morning. I got so much stuff. All right. Leave that to soak up the oil. And go put these Yawara in the dry room. I'll be right back. And I got this Gray Elm Tenarashi Tessen. I had some Gray Elm. It's been sitting in my shop for a while. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. And I recently started making these Tenarashi. They're used in Tessen Jutsu and Jiu-Jitsu and a few like traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as far as I know. But and I think they're used in Aikido sometimes. I'm sure there are other martial arts they're used in. Thanks for the likes, everybody. But this is a Tenarashi Tessen out of Gray Elm. Thing about Gray Elm, though, is even though it's a very sturdy wood, it's a very light, sturdy wood, it's got a wide grain, so man, it just soaks up the tongue oil. So I try to give it a very liberal coat. All right, be right back. Oh, whew. And if anybody's got any questions, drop them into chat. This is my Saturday standing live. I normally go live twice every weekend. I go live at around 12:30 or 1 on Saturdays for Saturday staining, and then I do my finishing work live on Sunday mornings at 7:30 a.m. Oddly enough, I'm not sure why, but more people seem to show up to the Sunday finishing work at 7:30 a.m. I'm not sure why so many people are awake at that point in time, but they seem to be. I forgot to oil the holes, you guys. Pro tip, you always gotta oil the holes. Nothing worse than a dry hole. All right. Yeah, nobody likes a dry hole. You gotta make sure you get that tongue oil right down in the holes, so that way it penetrates as deep as possible into the wood. Then tomorrow it'll get corded up, and you'll have basically a palm stick that is tethered to your hand. I use cotton cord on these because they tend to shift because they're slightly longer reach Yawara. All right, be right back. We got one more of these Ipe. Just popping in to bless me, much appreciated. Hey everybody, what's going on? Thank you for coming to my Saturday staining. Yeah, I'll take a blessing. They never seem to hurt. All right. I got one more of these ironwood Yawara. I got some. It's not Ipe, but it's a very similar wood to Ipe recently. And I'm thinking I might try to make a tenarashi out of that. I can't remember what it's called. I have to look it up. It's very similar in properties to Ipe ironwood, but it's slightly different. These are Ipe. Sometimes it's called ironwood, and they are probably the strongest Yawara that I sell. These are sturdy as AF. We'll say AF. Try not to get banned. All right, be right back. Whew. All right, let me get a new rag here. And then I got these. This is Purple Heart. These are Purple Heart tenarashi. Tessen. These were meant to resemble a folding fan. Daimyo, Japanese lords, used to smack their subordinates with their folding fan for discipline. And sometimes they used them as a club just for a secondary weapon. Unfortunately, folding fans were expensive and had a tendency to break, so they started using tenarashi, which is just a stick that looks like a folding fan. Wah! And I got a couple of these. I sold out of them last week, so making a couple more. I sold out of the Padauk ones the week before that, so I made 2 of those last weekend, and now I sold out of the Purple Hearts this week. Spooky season is in full effect too, so I've been selling out of my vampire stakes left and right, so that's kind of what I've been doing this week. I've got custom orders coming that have already come in that I got to start working on next week, so I'm trying to beef up my inventory so I can get started on these custom orders. The good old boink wood, yes. Yeah, the good old boink wood. But Purple Heart, I absolutely love Purple Heart. It sands up really pretty, and it's got a beautiful color. It's decay resistant, insect resistant. and it lasts a really long time. It's beautiful stuff. Really enjoy working with it. Be right back, me. Put this in the dry room. Then I got one more, and I looked at it earlier, and it looked like it had a crack in the handle, but now that I'm looking at it, I don't think it was a crack. I think it was just a piece of the wood grain. I don't know. I'll see what it looks like after it's finished curing with the tung oil. And if it is a crack, that means this will go up for auction, because I don't sell things that aren't perfect at full price. So it'll go up for auction at a discount, and it'll probably have a buy it now too on eBay. It just will be a very discounted buy it now price if somebody wants to just buy it. And it's pretty. It's just right there in the handle where I drilled the hole. I can't tell if it's a crack or if it's just a deep wood grain, but I am afraid it might be a crack. So, like I said, I'll let it sit with its tung oil coat overnight. I'll look at it in the morning and decide what I'm going to do with it. I'll sell it either way. Just if it's cracked, though, not going to be a full price sale. And I think that is all my tung oil stuff. Let me toss this. And tung oil is closed. That's wiped out. Well, I'll wipe it out again. I might as well shoot that. All right, there we go. Wipe out my little catch-all here. All right, be right back, then we'll stain things up. So many vampire steaks this week, you guys. So many vampire steaks, fam. So many. Oh. So I got a new job. I didn't lose my job necessarily. I got laid off a few weeks ago from my marketing copywriter job for a tech and cybersecurity company due to a corporate restructure, which is a lot of fun. But the upside is that I was able to almost immediately get a job working for a home renovation shop that's actually next door to my shop. And it pays pretty much the same, so I don't have to sit in an office all day and stress. So really enjoy it so far. Really liking it. So I think possibly my days working in corporate America are over. Not sure where I was going with that. All right, let me clean my hands up. Thanks for the likes, everybody. Are you able to make a saber out of wood? I mean, yeah, you could make. The thing with sabers, it's kind of like when you make a katana boken. The thing about making wooden swords, if it's a curved blade, the thing you really got to watch out for is a lot of people think you can just cut a curved blade into wood, and you can't, because the grain will cross-sect across the blade. So the first time you smack it, it's going to break where that grain goes across. So what you have to do when you have a curved blade, you have to make it straight, a straight boken first. You have to whatever you want to say, sand it, shape it, all that stuff. Then you've got to steam it or leave it submerged in water for like 3 days. And then set up a little area of pins, put your boken in there and bend it. Once it's completely saturated with water, wood becomes very bendable. I would recommend not using too crazy. I would go with red oak or poplar, something that's not too hard to bend. Heavier and more dense woods like ironwood, purple heart, stuff like that would be really hard to do that with. But if you can't afford a steamer, the poor man's way of bending a practice sword is just to take the wood and submerge it in water for a few days, then take it out, bend it, and just let it sit for like a week and let it dry in that position you bent it in, and then you can make a saber out of wood. Yes. It's a little difficult though. You see what sorry, I can't see very well. You forged one, but I made one out of wood. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely do it. You can definitely make a practice weapon out of, you know, or for a saber, you can make a practice saber out of wood. It's just you're gonna have to steam bend it, or you're going to have to, like I said, submerge it in water. So the water submersion method is cheaper because you don't have to buy a steam room and all that stuff to do it with, but you have to leave it in the water for like 3 days, and then sometimes it could take up to a week for it to dry once you do it that way. But it will work. I have done it that way before. I only did it once because it was such a pain in the ass. I had a custom order for a curved bokken. This guy really wanted one. He's an Aikido guy. I'd made several practice bokken for him before. He really liked them. So he wanted a curved one, and it took me about a month to finish his bokken because I had to leave the wood submerged in water for like 4 or 5 days. Apparently I could have done it in 3, but I did it for 4 or 5 days and then took it out. And then the first pin setup that I did wasn't correct, so I had to redo that, resubmerge it in water. It took probably took me about just 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks just to get the steam bend or the bend into the wood. But it can be done. It's just a pain in the ass. I prefer making straight edge bokken because they're less difficult, and I make straight edge wasters as well for like Hema, Buhurt. I make European style practice swords that are actually meant to be used. Most of the things that you find online that call themselves wasters are just pretty looking wooden swords that are going to snap the first time you actually try to use them in a full contact setting. My wasters, however, are absolutely meant to be used in a full contact setting. And all of my wasters and bokken, by the way, in my shop, all of my practice weapons are guaranteed. If you buy a waster or a bokken from me, you go to use it, it snaps on you. All you have to do is contact me, say, hey, bought this bokken or waster from you. It broke when it shouldn't have broken, and I will replace it and I will make a new one, send you a replacement. No charge on shipping. You don't have to return the old one. Nothing. I will replace it. Now, there is a caveat on that. I had one guy, it's the only guy in the last 3 years who's come to me with a broken waster, who was using a steel unpadded practice dummy and kept snapping his bokken, or snapping his wasters, and couldn't figure out why. And I'm like, well, dude, you couldn't hit a steel practice dummy with a real sword, it would break. So what makes you think a wooden sword's going to stand up to it? So, don't go smacking it against a hard sedentary object. But in sparring, my bokken are guaranteed. They will not break. I have horrible eyes. You made sabers for the lift guard before? Whoop, that's cool. All right, this is the Jacobian saying. This is for all the vampire steaks I've got here. I sold out of poplar vampire steaks this week, so I had to make 6 more, and I made actually 2 different types. So I'm hoping that will help me keep these in stock, because every time, man, September, I cannot keep these poplar steaks in stock. It's that spooky season, man. They're reasonably priced and they look cool, and they seem to be my most popular Halloween item. I've got way cooler steaks on my shop, but they're more expensive. So these poplar steaks tend to be popular sellers because they're cheap and they look cool. At least they do once I finish staining them. Woot, woot. All right, here we go. The Royal Swedish Lifeguards, huh? Like the Swiss Guard? I'm just kidding. The Swiss Guard's another thing, I'm pretty sure. Right? That's the Vatican. The Swiss Guard guys. Those are the guys that Sabaton likes to sing about. It's kind of, but you know, the Swiss Guard, their clothes may be a little goofy, but I wouldn't F with those guys. I would not screw around with them. I feel like they could still kick ass. Well, maybe you want to make props and swords. That's actually a pretty cool question. Give me 1 second and I will answer that. Let me put this away real quick. So this is actually something I've kind of done since I was a kid. As a kid, I studied martial arts, but my family did not have a lot of money. So when I was young, I lived in Southern California for a while, and I lived in the Asian district. I think back then they called it Little Tokyo. And a lot of my friends were Asian, most of them Japanese, and I studied martial arts with them. But, you know, martial arts, not exactly a cheap hobby, and my family couldn't afford a lot of stuff. So the sensei at that school, really nice guy, Yamagishi sensei, he taught me how to make my own bokken so that I wouldn't have to. And it was harder, yeah, but I could afford to make my own bokken. He taught me how to make them out of readily available stuff, and so that was what I did. But the truth is, like, I've been making weapons and stuff since I was probably 3 years old. I think the first thing I ever made was a crossbow. And that was great until I shot my brother with it. It was don't worry, it wasn't like, it was just a stick with like a rubber band on it. And the stick I shot him with did not have an arrowhead on it, but still, I shot my little brother in the butt with it. That ended it. But I've always liked making weapons, but making practice swords, that was when I first learned. I was about 11 years old, and it just kind of stuck with me. I honestly found when I started making bokken, I liked making my own practice weapons better because, you know, I was in charge of the wood grain. I knew exactly what that weapon could handle. I knew the balance on it. I knew exactly what to do with it. And props, when it comes to making props, I am a big fan of old school, I don't know how else to say this, bad cinema. I really love like low budget movies from like the 80s especially. Sometimes the 70s. I really love low budget 80s movies. I love sometimes the 90s and 70s, but mostly the 80s. I really love just low budget 80s movies. And the thing I love about those is that, you know, even though a lot of those movies had low budgets, you know, they didn't have CGI back then like we do now. So if they wanted to make an effect, they had to figure out a way to do it. And I really just, I've always kind of loved that. And I also have I've had a lot of customers over the years who have bought, I originally started making practice weapons, and they wanted prop weapons for different things, usually conventions and stuff like that. So the prop thing kind of came later. Originally, I just made practice weapons, but I kind of found that I really enjoy making props as well. Depends on the prop, though. I don't do anything too crazy. Mostly it's prop weapons. Your hobbies are music and forging weapons. You see, and that's cool because you can do those together. You can listen to music and forge weapons at the same time. Reconsider, that's funny, Tony. We're going to reconsider our immigration policy with Transylvania. Yeah. I heard a funny joke this week that, you know, there are vampires in America, but there are no vampires in Africa. And that's because they bless the rains down in Africa. And vampires can't handle holy water. It's a terrible joke. It's a terrible, terrible joke. But I like it. Oh, good gracious. So many steaks. Your first type of weapon was a Pugil. 9 years old. That's cool. What is a Pugil or Pugil? I'm probably butchering that word. What is that? I don't know that I'm familiar with it. All right. Whew. One more of these, and then I gotta move on to the other poplar sticks. There we go. Let's see if I got it. I think I got enough stain on here to finish this one. Oh, okay, yeah, like, oh, I get, yeah, I am familiar with it. I never knew that's what that was called. I make gladius, gladius. I make a gladius waster in my shop. I actually make two different kinds. I have a standard and I have a deluxe version. The standard version is a little bit shorter and it's just a mineral oil immersion. I don't tongue oil it. Mineral oil, though, you know, I know people think that's like the cheaper way to go, but my boo hurt guys that I provide practice weapons for, they actually prefer the mineral oil immersion to tongue oil because when you soak like a wooden sword in mineral oil, it makes it where the blade of the weapon is more likely to dent than crack. So you can kind of hit harder, and you know it's easy to reapply mineral oil, and it's cheap. You can get it just about at any hardware store. Usually it smells like lemons. So, you know, it usually makes your practice weapon smell lemon fresh, but, you know, small price to pay. Now we got these. I'm making a pair of these kind of thin steaks. I'm just going to auction these off on the shop as a pair. I had some small cutoffs and couldn't really figure out what else to do with them, so I hate wasting wood. So I'm gonna give these a cool handle wrap in the morning, and then they'll go up on the shop tomorrow at auction, probably for like 99 cents plus shipping. So come on, get in there. The smell of lemon freshness before your demise. Yeah, yeah. You're like, I don't know, man. I got whooped my ass, but damn did he smell lemon fresh. His weapons were delightful. Thanks. I'm running out of room in the dry room here. I'll give this another stir real quick. It's been sitting for a minute. Always want to make sure you keep your stain stirred. It does tend to separate. Then you don't get a very good color. It can dilute your the stain won't have enough of a dilution after a while if you use it that way. So you got to be a little careful. But yes, you know, if you're gonna beat the hell out of someone with a wooden sword, it doesn't hurt to smell nice, you know. And these are slightly different. These have a rounded tip. They're actually thicker and narrower than the ones I just did. They're very similar in appearance, but this was a discarded piece of wood that I found at a job site I was working this last week, and they said I could have it, so figured I'd use it since I can't seem to keep my poplar stakes in stock. Figured I'd just make 2 different kinds. And hopefully I won't sell out while I'm working on these custom orders that I got going on next week. So I've got an order for 2 custom baseball bats. I've got an order for a custom kanabo or tetsubo. I had to order the wood. Wood should be here Monday for that. That's going to be cool. It's going to be 4 feet long. It's going to have studs all over it. It's going to be awesome. If you don't know what a tetsubo or kanabo is, highly recommend Googling that. They're pretty cool. Also known as an oni club. They're good stuff. Man, starting to wonder where I'm going to put all this. I'm running out of room back there. Do they stay black, these? They're not really black. I think they look more black on camera. It's more of a dark brown. Once they cure, they lighten up just a tiny bit. But I use this is Jacobean stain. It tends to be a darker stain. I like to use it for vampire steaks. It gives it more of a, I don't know, kind of an older look to it. I used to use provincial stain, which looks good in some stuff, but I just find this darker stain looks better for vampire steaks. I know they look black on camera, but they're actually more of a brown. And in the light, you can kind of see they're more of a dark brown. But no, they lighten up slightly when they are done, when the stain finishes curing. But for the most part, they stay dark. Even when they've lightened up, they're still dark. What I gotta decide for these new ones, some of my poplar steaks I put handle wraps on. I need to decide if I'm gonna do that. Have I watched Forged in Fire? Oh yeah, dude. Like, I was watching Forged in Fire like from the beginning when it first came out. I actually really like that show. I haven't watched it much lately. It's kind of, I work 3 jobs, so these days I don't really have a lot of time for television. And I got rid of cable. I went ahead and just went full streaming services. So, you know, I just don't have a lot of time between running my shop, working on books. I write books for Penguin Random House. I'm a mythology writer for them. So between writing books, running my shop, and my day job, you know, I have a 9-to-5 day job as well. I don't have a lot of time. Plus, I'm a Helldiver. I play Helldivers 2. That is my favorite game in the world. And so all of that stuff takes priority. And then if I'm done with all of that and I have time, then I watch television. Is this my personal stash? No, not my personal stash. No, this is definitely for sale. This is all going up on eBay tomorrow, if it's not already up there. No, I've already got my own stash at home. When the zombie and or vampire apocalypse comes, you guys, I'm already ready for it. I got my own stuff at home. He got kicked off the show because his blade was curved on Forged in Fire. Was it not supposed to be curved? What was the weapon he was supposed to make? Is that's the one thing I think is funny with Forged in Fire. I feel like a lot of the Smiths that go on there never watch the show because so many of them get kicked off for not meeting parameters, which I find funny. Like it happens all the time. I'm like, dude, pay attention to parameters. But I wonder well, how many hours do I huff in this tent? I don't. As soon as I'm done with this, I go outside and I turn my air scrubbers on. I have 3 air scrubbers in this room. I just don't run them because it's hard for you guys to hear me and it's hard for me to hear myself with them running. So I don't. The fumes aren't too bad with stain. If I'm doing like spray paint or something like that, I wear a respirator and I run the air scrubbers. But stuff like this, not too bad. as soon as I'm done with the Saturday staining, I flip all my air scrubbers back on and I leave the room for about a half an hour. I got one more steak, and then I've got some Ninja Hanbo that I gotta stain black. So we'll be switching to another stain, which means new gloves again. But no, I try not to. Actually, I'm pretty, aside from Saturday staining, I'm actually pretty religious about my wearing protective gear because I don't like breathing stuff in that I'm not supposed to breathe in. It will F your lungs up. As a smoker, that's a really stupid thing for me to say because I'm already fucking my lungs up. But you know, in wood especially, there's formaldehyde. Anytime you're sanding or working with wood, if you're cutting or sanding wood, you should be wearing a respirator. No matter what, because the stuff that they put in wood, there's different preservatives and stuff. It's just really not good for your lungs. Highly recommend just wear a good respirator. Oh. So apparently my family is here. Hang on. You guys can come in. Sorry, my significant other is here, apparently. So. We were gonna come back. Oh, come on in. You can come in if you want to. I'm live right now, though.
I know.
So you don't have. Oh, okay. So, but anyway, yeah. I've just got one more thing I gotta stain up, and then I'll be heading home. All right.
Yeah, we just come back down on the scooter. Enjoy your life.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just checking you that we were gonna come back.
No worries.
All right.
Have a good time. Hey, go. All right, you guys. You burnt yourself making a custom katana from the Tang Dynasty? Well, if it was from the Tang Dynasty, that's Chinese, so not a katana, but yeah. I don't burn myself as a woodworker. What I tend to do is I get a lot of like abrasions. I get a lot of like sanding. My belt sander, I lose skin on that belt sander all the time, you guys. I am as careful as I can be, but that almost had a musical sound to it. All right, now we're gonna move to this black gel stain. And clean my hands again, put on different gloves. Super exciting stuff, you guys. But yeah, no, anytime you work with your hands, especially if you're using power tools and stuff, there are always dangers. As you can see on my arm right here, I did that. I had a sanding disc on a power drill. I was working on I was stripping a deck last week or week before last, and I got a little bounce back on the drill and hit me in the arm. But it was just a flesh wound, nothing to worry about. Just a flesh wound. The Black Knight always triumphs. And if you don't know that reference, you're probably too young to be here. Genghis Khan, yeah, those Mongolian sabers are cool. Crap, my hand was not dry enough for that glove. Shit, hang on, you guys. If I try to put these gloves on before my hands are dry, they get stuck. There we go. All right, let me try to dry my hands off here. It's just a scratch. That's right. 'Tis but a flesh wound. Your arm's off. No, it isn't. What's that then? I'm invincible. The Black Knight always triumphs. And if you've never seen Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail, the Quest for the Holy Grail, highly recommend that. Probably one of my favorite comedies of all time. Anything by Monty Python, honestly, but of all the Monty Python stuff, definitely, I feel like their crowning achievement was the Holy Grail. That shit's fucking hilarious. All right, there we go. Finally got the gloves on. Whew. All right, and now we're gonna stir up this gel stain. I hate using it, to be honest with you, but it looks so good and it does such a good job. Regular black stain just never really seems to get a deep enough stain in the wood, so I go with gel stain. Yeah, Monty Python's the shit, dude. Life of Brian, yeah, Life of Brian. I love Life of Brian. It's hilarious. That's another one of my favorites of theirs. You know, one of my favorite parts in that movie is previously he's like, no, listen, you're all individuals, and they're like, yes, as a group, they're all going, yes, we're all individuals. Like they're all answering in unison. Like, and no, it's not like they've completely missed the point. Oh, you have it on Blu-ray? Oh, that's awesome. Dude, I used to have a huge physical media library when I was younger. And then when I was in college, literally the week before I graduated from my undergrad in college, I lived in this little shack behind my family's house. That sounds terrible. It sounds like I was, like, it was a shack, but it was a fairly nice shack. But that shack, unfortunately, caught fire. While I was out one night on a date. And all of my DVDs and VHS tapes and Blu-rays were destroyed. I was not happy about that. Not to mention I lost some rare books, which also sucks. And so that was this funny thing. Like I didn't care about, like, when the fire happened, the stuff that I lost, I didn't give a shit about, like, my computer, my TV, like any of that stuff. What I was more upset about was, like, I lost a bunch of art. I lost pictures and rare books and stuff that you can't replace. That's always the worst, it seems like. Now with this black stain, though, the thing you have to watch is it does tend to thin as you move inward. You have to make sure you're getting into the grain, or you end up with, like, these little spots where it hasn't penetrated. So you got to make sure you go over it multiple times. And that it has gotten into every nook and cranny. Sometimes an oak, especially when they're dowels like this, it has a tendency to have some deep grain. So you just got to be sure you get into it. And it's very hard to do that without making a complete mess. I usually make a little bit of a mess. I'm doing this. All right. Sorry, guys. Got to be quiet for just a minute here while I think and focus. All right. I usually have to sand or I usually have to stain, not sand. I usually have to stain these twice because it usually misses at least one spot. But when it's done, when it gets the second stain, damn, it looks good. And then I do a cord wrap on the ends here so that it gives a better grip and it gives a better striking surface. No, I didn't leave the oven on in the shack. As a matter of fact, they weren't sure what caused the fire. The fire inspector that came in and investigated, he gave me two possible explanations, and we really never could figure out which one was the right one. Well, there was no oven in there. The only explanation he had was it was winter and I had a window unit heater, and I had a lighter sitting like a kind of like one of those long little trigger lighter things, like for a charcoal grill, sitting on the counter next to it. He believed that possibly because it was too close to the heater, but I don't know. It wasn't like a space heater or anything, but he thought that maybe it caused the lighter to ignite. The other one, they thought that maybe the unit itself, like the air conditioning unit itself, maybe caused a fire, or that it threw a spark into it. There was a nearby trash can. It definitely started in that corner of the shack, and there was a trash can, and they think that maybe like a spark from something in the air conditioner, like it had a short or something, it might have dropped into the trash can and caused it to set fire. But they were never able to prove or disprove any of those theories, but those are what they definitely decided it was accidental, but they never could figure out what actually caused it. King Charles the 12th of Sweden's death has been a mystery for 300 years. Really? That's interesting. I feel like that's probably true of the deaths of some monarchs. It's, sometimes I feel like back in the monarchy, you either had a good king or you had a bad king. And when you had a bad king, it wasn't like you could impeach them or kick them out of office. So there was really only one way to deal with a bad king back in the day, and to be honest, it's the only way to deal with a bad king today, which is to just not to kill them, but to make sure that they are not alive anymore. Whether that be by poison or assassination. But yeah, the deaths also, I think a lot of deaths in that period of time in general, up until like the 18th, 19th century, a lot of deaths were mysterious because, they didn't really have a way to test for all poisons or conditions. Back in the day, you also got to remember that for a long time of human history, most of us were high as shit on LSD, especially in Europe. During any famine in Europe, there's this stuff called ergot that grows on wheat. It's a fungus, and it's also where we get LSD from. And during times of famine, back in the day when they'd see the little black grains, they'd toss them out. Or if you were poor, you were sorting grain for your lord, you'd take those little black grains home and make your own LSD bread. There's a lot of weird shit in history that happened, and I firmly believe a lot of it was because people were tripping balls. All right, woot woot. I think that is everything I had to stain and oil today. He died of a projectile. Well, that's not as big of a mystery, I guess. He died of a projectile. They didn't know what kind of projectile. I mean, I don't know what was the time period? Were firearms a thing yet, or because you'd think usually when they're chronicling like a king's death, especially if it would happen in like a battle scenario, they are usually pretty specific about how it happened, even if they're not honest about how it happened. I actually saw a really cool movie that was a Swedish film a while back. It was about these like soldiers that they're these like they were, I don't know if I'd call them knights or soldiers, but they were like a special unit back in like the medieval period that they used skis to get around, and it was really cool. They were trying to protect like the infant heir to the throne of their country after an overthrow of their king. And these guys, it was pretty cool. It's like they were warriors, but they could travel very quickly on skis. I wish I could remember what that movie was called. It was a really cool movie. It's been a few years since I've seen it. It was a very good movie. I really enjoyed it. Oh, 1718, 30th of November is when he died. So yeah, I would say 1718. It's still not a great time period for predicting how people died from. If you ever go back and look at old like death records from like the 14th to the 18th century, the late 18th century, like so many people died of consumption, right? They just called it consumption. And a lot of times, like they used that for tuberculosis. They used it for different kinds of fevers, like any number of different like ailments that people died of. They called consumption, which isn't great for historians trying to figure out what people died of. Oh, good gracious! I thought I just cleaned my hands. All right, I should probably clean my hands after I do this. Oh, wait, I need to leave that here. This goes with me. Be right back. I am cleaning up now, folks. If you got any questions, drop those in the chat. I will gladly answer them before I get out of here. But that is everything that I needed to stain on this episode of Saturday Staining. So if you got a question, drop it in the chat, and I will answer it before I go. But if we don't have any questions, and that black stain got everywhere. Thank goodness I have this part of the table covered. All right. But if we don't have any questions, I'll probably clean my hands here and head out. No one knows if one of his own soldiers are the enemy. Yeah, I feel like that's another thing that happens a lot in history. They know that somebody died, but they're not quite sure who did it. You know, it's like the old, it's like the emperors of Rome. I think it's funny that the emperors of Rome, their bodyguards were the Praetorians. And most emperors who were assassinated not by assassins, but by the Praetorians themselves. Like, but yeah. Well, if he was a good king, might have been the enemy. Not so good of a king, or just got on the bad side of somebody. Usually for kings, what usually gets kings killed is they got in the way of somebody's money, or they got in the way of somebody's power. Usually the church, but it depends. I have to look that up. I'm not super familiar with Charles XII. Actually, I shouldn't say I'm not super familiar. I'm not familiar at all with Charles XII. So I'll have to look that up and educate myself on it. Julius Caesar died on your birthday? So, do you beware the Ides of March? Yeah. That's interesting. You know, Julius Caesar, I think it's interesting. Like he most likely had epilepsy. They say he had some kind of a, they called it a fit disorder, which that he would have fits, and of course they thought it was like a curse from the gods or something on Julius Caesar that he had these episodes, but most likely he just had epilepsy and was having seizures. Whew. Oh my God, you guys, I'm so ready to be done for today. So ready. Ready to be done. I got so much done today. And tomorrow I will be back. Tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning, live again on YouTube for my Sunday finishing work live. You'll get to see all the stuff that I stained today will get finished and handle wrapped and distressed and all that stuff tomorrow. You were born on the 15th of March. When? 2010. Jesus Christ, man, you're trying to make me feel old over here. You had 2 seizures, having blood tests. Huh. Well, there you go. You're probably Julius Caesar reincarnated, man. That's the only explanation. Yeah, so, but I will be live tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. For Sunday finishing work. That's usually a longer one. These Saturday standings usually go for like 3 minutes to an hour, 30 minutes to an hour tops. My Sunday finishing work lives, they're a lot longer. They tend to be at least an hour to 2 hours long. So if you're awake at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow, I'm not sure, or if you've been up that late, either one. I find that the people that come to my Sunday morning lives are they've either gotten up early or they've stayed up way too late. Either way, if you're awake, please come and you can watch me finish stuff. You can find my shop on eBay, Warrior Wooden Props. There is a link in my bio on my link tree. WarriorWoodenProps.com is up for custom orders, but I unfortunately, due to an issue with Shopify that I'm having right now and cannot seem to get a human being to help me with, my shop is not functioning. So WarriorWoodenProps.com, only go there if you need to message me about a custom order. Otherwise, go to eBay, check out my shop. I have the largest selection of vampire steaks you are going to find anywhere online. I also make a bunch of weird shit. From zombie apocalypse baseball bats, practice weapons, ninja weapons. If it's made out of wood or foam or plastic, I probably make it. And if I don't, let me know and I will make a custom for you. Hey, take it easy. Thanks for hanging out with me and thanks for all the questions. I really appreciate it. You enjoy your day too. All right, you guys, I am out. Thanks for hanging out with me on this Saturday. I will see y'all in the morning if you're there. But thanks for joining me for Saturday Staining. I'm going home. Out.